should be live. All right. If that's correct, I think we're live. What's up, guys? Doug Polk here, and welcome to today's podcast. We are joined by a guest I've been very excited to have on for some time. A lot of great topics for us to dive into, including his recent crushing winning heads up streak on the duel. And then also I want to chat a little bit with Phil about a big hand we recently played in high stakes poker. And then I also want to talk about World Series of Poker and everything else poker related right here today with Phil. Should be a good one. I want to thank you guys for joining today. If you missed out last week, we had a podcast on the recent huge cryptocurrency hack. It was quite a good one. We went a little bit in depth there from more of a technical perspective. If you're interested in that, feel free to check it out. And we're going to have Brian Pellegrino joining the podcast most likely in 2 or 3 weeks. We're still figuring out exact timelines here, but he'll be joining to talk primarily some cryptocurrency stuff, but we're also going to mix in, talk about the heads up challenge I recently played. He helped me create all of the ranges and whatnot that I had going. Okay. Without further ado, let's welcome to the podcast today, the man himself, number one all-time World Series of Poker bracelet holder, Phil Hellmuth. Thank you for joining the pod today.
Yeah, cool, Doug. All right, a couple things. First off, this is supposed to be like a 90-minute thing. So, of course, you know me, not afraid to promote. Freaking a little brain fuel. Hold on, let me get a swig of this on air. Right.
Very nice. Perfect.
All right, this I'm not being paid for, but I know this is going to be. It's a wonder. I can't believe I've gained weight. I wonder why. Oh wait, I'm eating raw chocolate chip cookie dough. Pillsbury. See it?
Pillsbury. Wow,
it's a shocker. It's a shocker that I've gained weight. You know, one of my nephews is in town. He said like the whole tube's 4,000 calories. Good. And then I have a little string cheese. Okay, that's it. I'm not promoting / not promoting, just having fun and goofing off.
It's 9:45 a.m. and you're getting your day started with a full tube of raw cookie dough? Is that
no?
That's pretty apex predator, Phil, I have to say.
I cut just a little slice.
Oh, okay, just
kind
a
of
little
a
slice.
thick slice. Listen, I wouldn't be eating this honestly, except I have to do your podcast. And I just finished. I don't know how they kept me on the phone an hour and a half. I did something for the Telegraph that's coming out in a month or two for their Fame and Fortune column on Sunday. It's supposed to be a massive column. So promote. So I'm working hard. I was in Italy last week, so that's why I'm up so early. I haven't been up before noon in the States in a long time.
You normally like to sleep in, so sometimes even into tournaments that are starting. I've seen that happen a time or two. And just for the audience, I told Phil, normally when guests come on, I say, feel free to promote what you're up to. I said, Phil, I don't even think I need to let you know. I'm sure you'll do a great job of letting the people know what you're doing.
Promote, sell.
All right.
Negreanu always feeds into that. I mean, it's like, I'm Phil Hellmuth. I represent Brain Fuel. I wrote a book, Positivity. I wrote the New York Times best-selling book, Poker Brat. Play poker like the pros and promote, sell.
Very well. That's very good. It's a very good way to get your brand out there, build your reputation, build your name. So you definitely do a great job of that. Let's kick this off and talk about the Heads Up Duel on Poker Go, because this is turning into just a bloodbath. And when they built the format, I'm not sure if they realized what they were just doing was creating the Phil Hellmuth stomping grounds where people come in and give their money to you and then leave. But what number of matches have you won now? I mean, you beat Antonio 3 times, I believe, right? And then you beat Negreanu 3 times, and then I think you played his name is Nick Wright, I believe. 7
in a row on high stakes duel. I think I've won 26 out of 28 of my last matches. I won a heads up tournament on the East Coast. The last heads up tournament I played in. I think I played in a series tournament where Kerry Katz beat me. So if we take Kerry at his word, he's not a pro. I've won 26 out of 27 matches against the pros, which is just crazy. But and obviously some luck involved. But it always it's interesting to me when then I tell people, hey, I've won 26 out of 28 matches. And then I say, you're a 3-2 underdog in this match. And I say, I won 26 out of 28 matches, 26 out of 27 against pros. And they say, you're a 3-2 underdog. You're a 3-2 underdog. So I know, the Negreanu match, it was particularly interesting. He attacked my legacy. And I will tell you something, Doug. I will tell you this. You personally, there's a part of you that will root, don't answer. There's a part of you that will root against me sometimes. You root against kind of the all-time greats. Sometimes you root against Tom Brady or whatever. That's fair. Maybe you want to see the blow up. But there's a lot of people that might have rooted against me. But Negreanu made sure he took the whole poker world, like a million people, and threw them all into my column. Thank you, Daniel. By trying to take away the legacy that I've earned. Like, I mean, you can't take that away. Jason Kuhn, if you ask him, he told me he admits I'm the greatest poker tournament player of all time right now. I might not be in 5 years. I might not be in 10 years, you know, but now I've earned that. And then Daniel tried to take that away from me. And I think that's BS. And, you know, and I was kind of upset with that. And I was also determined to, you know, I mean, even after I beat Daniel the third match, I said, you're one of the all-time greats. All I said to him was, you're one of the all-time greats. You're one of the all-time greats. The first match, he was like condescending, like he was going to pick me apart. Oh, I'm right on schedule. Oh, I'm ahead of schedule. I mean, it was really brutal, you know, but at the same time, I'm like, I was expecting it. I'm like, okay, this is even more brutal than I expected. And, you know, he just didn't look very good doing that, but I can thank him for driving, you know, every pro solidly into my corner just for those few matches. You can go against rooting. You can go back to rooting against me occasionally, Doug, but I mean, I was upset, and he really kind of got the best out of me. In fact, that first match, I'll be honest, Doug, we're talking this first match against him. I literally just found out about NFTs. I talked to 6 CEOs that weekend. High power, like, okay, now I'm bragging. 6 CEOs I talked to. I met with Soo Kim, who just spent $4 billion a few weeks before buying assets Monday night. And I came into that match exhausted. And also because he was attacking me and because I felt like Nick Schulman missed some stuff, my mind was editing what exactly I'm going to say to Daniel, what exactly I'm going to say to Nick. So I had 2 speeches I was writing the whole time, and I was super, super busy, and I came in tired, you know. And, you know, I had just, you know, 2 days before I came up with the Apex Predator speech. And, you know, because I limped with King Jack, and, you know, and Antonio raised, and he had King Queen, and I folded. I limped with King 10, and Antonio raised with King Queen, and I folded. And Nick said bad play, and Ali is like, are you sure those are bad plays? And I was at home saying, oh my God, we've never seen anybody limp and fold King Jack before. I was doing cartwheels, and Nick's like, that's a bad play. And I'm like, what? So I was a little bit steamed up. And so I had to tell him that I didn't like, so I had to say, listen, you know, just because your mathematical Bible, just because of information you're currently studying says I'm playing poorly, does not mean I'm playing poorly. We may not solve this stuff for a long time, but you have to factor in reading ability. And, you know,
Phil,
so
if I could just jump in here for 1 second, because there's just so many different topics in that response that I want to talk about. I don't want us to get too carried away. I want to go back to what you were saying about the odds. And you were talking about how, you know, you were 3-2 underdog, you're 3-2 underdog. I thought the odds were surprising. And I mean, Daniel has been on this podcast. We talked about the odds. We talked about the match and the odds. And, you know, even if you think a player is better in a heads up sit and go, the odds are usually pretty close in sit and goes because the format, escalating blinds.
That's your mathematical understanding in 2021 that the odds are very close in all these matches. Correct. Agree with that.
Okay. So what did you think when you saw those were the odds? I mean, obviously you think that was a joke because you know, you've mentioned here, you've been crushing in heads up matches for some time. And, you know, I did get steamrolled along the way. So I know what it's like to be on the losing end of a heads up match versus Phil Hellmuth. But when you saw those odds, what were you thinking? And did you bet on yourself on the side when those became available?
No, I didn't bet on myself on the side. To me, winning it's all about legacy. I have to win these things, right? I did a very high percentage of myself in those matches. The last match, we allegedly put up 200,000 each. So I could have sold off. My money had been, you know, I doubled it and doubled it again. And I sold 5,000 to U-Stake investors because I like having 100 people at $50 on me because it gives me more motivation to win for them. And I sold 5,000 to D-Moon Girl because she asked me a long time ago, and I've sold her 5K for every match. And I don't think I sold another piece. So I think I had 190,000 bet on myself against Daniel, the 200. Now I know that Antonio Esfandiari and Eric Seidel bet on me. I don't want to say how much because Antonio doesn't like me talking about him ever. And, but
Yeah,
Antonio's also texted me after the third match. You let me off the hook. Now that Negreanu lost 3 in a row.
that's nice. Yeah.
Funny.
Yeah. He's a pretty private guy. I think he likes to kind of stick to his own streets. I guess for me, obviously, I think we're at different stages. Like I'm still in kind of some prime earning years of my life, and I'm sure kind of where you're at now. You're a little more focused on legacy, but at the end of the day, getting laid 3-2 is pretty juicy, man. And if you think you're winning there, why not just get a little more taste on the side, a little extra something. You could even sell some of your main action and then just get action on the side and get better odds overall. There's a lot of stuff you could do there.
That's a good idea. I never thought of that, but that would feel just a little bit cheap to me to, sell my friends at even and then bet myself at 3-2.
Fair.
And, so I think that in that regard, I'd probably have to pass on. I think that for me personally, listen, Doug, I'm 57 years old, man. I mean, I know everybody sees me and they're like, wow, you look like you're in your 40s. And I love that, response from people. I get to do what I love every day, all that. I have a lot of energy, all that, but I'm ramping up, man. I mean, I've been asked to join 3 VC firms and I'm about to take a position in a VC firm as a partner. It's a pretty big deal. It's being anchored by one of the biggest investors in the world, a name you would know instantly. And then, and I did 3 SPACs last year. Now the poker world, most people don't know what those are.
So you're working with Chamath then, if it's a SPAC, right? He's the king of the SPACs.
No.
Oh, okay.
Chamath is the king of the SPACs. I did 3 SPACs last year. I was sponsor money, but now I have a much bigger role. I raised $5 million in sponsor money from my SPAC in 48 hours. Now that feels pretty good to me. To my friends, that's a penny. So I get no credit at all. But as a poker player, it feels pretty good. I want my friends put in this money. Trust me, they could lose it all. Sponsor money, either you're going to get 3-1 to 9-1 on your money, or you lose it all. But they all wanted to gamble with me. So I raised like 5.3 million in 48 hours for the SPAC we're going to be launching soon. And so for me, we did 3 SPACs last year. I got a $2 million bonus when I found the company we took out, RSI, Rush Street Interactive. And so for me, the business stuff's been a lot of fun. And, that's where I'm going to, if I make $1 billion, and, for the first time ever, I thought maybe I could, make $1 billion about 8 months ago. I'm like, whoa, I could actually make $1 billion. That's not a goal. I don't care. But certainly I think I'll make hundreds of millions at least. And I'm having fun. So, we launched a VC firm. We raised 10 million for the first firm. Then we'll raise 150 million for the second firm, then 600 million for the third firm. That's fun. And so, people are like, why isn't Phil going to play $25,000 buy-ins with 30 people? He's afraid of us. I'm not afraid of those guys. I can't wait to get my bet in with Negreanu.
You wove that back in nicely, because I want to talk about some of the investing and business stuff, but I want to kind of talk about some of the poker things here first. When you talk about high rollers versus large field tournaments, and I mean, we wrote this article about you on Upswing a few years back. I think you probably remember it. We looked at your big field results, and they're actually remarkable. How good you have done in the large fields.
Let me just say this, and people are going to perceive this as bragging. We're talking. The USA Today came out with an article of who's won money in the big field tournaments, the World Series. And they had all these people here. I was a little speck off the chart. Like I was an outlier of the outliers. I mean, it was crazy. This was in USA Today.
You're saying, I mean, I can think of some other outliers out there. It's not a good list in poker.
My outlier status was so high, no one was close to me at the World Series of Poker. Now, Joe Cada is probably in a similar spot right now.
So no doubt about it, the big field stuff, your results are there. But in the high rollers, if you look at your ROI, I don't think that it's nearly the same. And I think that most people in the high roller scene view you as a spot in those tournaments.
Let's just be clear. I'm up 1.8 million in high rollers.
I look, Phil, would you agree with what I'm saying? Like, you've talked to these people. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the discourse online, and when people talk about this subject, they think you're going to be.
Listen, there's 2 things. There's 1, we can talk about facts. 2, we can talk about what people are saying. I agree with what you're saying. I've been under attack for But then they said I was a losing player at high rollers. Negreanu said that, and I called him. I said, "What the fuck? I'm up 1.8 million in high rollers. What are you talking
Yeah, but what's
about?"
one? Okay, 1.8 million in high rollers is not very much money, Phil. I mean,
Okay, hold on. Let me finish. You want another fact?
sure, go for it.
Who I've played in that? Let's look at the one drop, the biggest high roller of them all, right? Who has 3 top tens in the one drop? No one except me. I'm the only guy. So high roller this, high roller that. The biggest high rollers in the world, the one drop. I have 3 top 10 finishes. I'm the only guy, and I've only played half of them. So I'm kind of sick of this bullshit. I rarely play the other tournaments. I did play some 300,000s when I was exhausted and couldn't perform. And then they judged me on that. I mean, the only reason I played is because I have a piece of Poker Central, and they really wanted me there. So I showed up and I played, and I figured I can't be an underdog anyway. And so they see me blow up in a high roller or 125K or play poorly, and they're like, "Phil's a spot." They think I'm a spot. I'll grant you that. But I mean, Daniel's going to put his money where his mouth is again and lay me 2-1. I can't break even over 50 high rollers. So I'm going to bet him as much as I can. I'll sell a bunch to my friends. I'll put at least 150 or 200,000 of my own money up, and we'll go find out. I mean, I played in some high rollers recently, and I looked around and I was like, wow, I was not impressed. I saw one guy who's been super disrespectful to me, a complete jerk. Some of these young guys are just complete assholes. I always gave everybody credit when I came up. I always respected the people that paved the path for me. And so, but there was one guy who's been a complete asshole to me. I saw him make a really great call, and I was like, that was pretty cool. But, are 5 or 6 of these guys in the same category as me? Yes. Does a lot of the high rollers, do these guys say, "Hey, these guys are better than you"? They say that, but I don't agree. But I'm not going to say that I'm better than they are. So, there might be 5 or 10 players that I'm going to say, all right, maybe you're better than me. I don't think so, but I'm not going to say that I'm better than them.
Okay, that's
so
fair, yeah.
I'll say I'm the all-time great in poker tournaments. I'm not saying I'm the greatest player today, but I want that shot to prove I am. I mean,
Sure. The thing is, Phil, there's so many forms of poker, and that's why you can't just lock in on just like one game type, right? Like, I think if I wanted to say, okay, who was the best heads up no limit cash game player ever online, I would put myself there, right? But that doesn't mean that I'm the best poker player ever at all. It just means that one specific type of poker. So the great thing is you get to argue about all these different kinds of things. And I don't think there's any person attacking your record in tournaments in large fields. It's just simply too good, right? So we're going to put that to the side. And I think that's kind of shown through with a lot of the bracelets that you've won, winning in these big field events. I wanted to bring up 2 specific points though about high rollers exactly, because first off, sample size is really important in poker. And I think one of the things about the smaller stakes tournaments is that you've played a huge number of them. So you're able to look back and say, here are hundreds of tournaments. I don't, it's at least hundreds of tournaments, right? Maybe even 1,000. I don't know. Here are hundreds of tournaments.
I play about 28 per year. And in the old days, I only played 6 a year. So they're like, "Oh, you played all these tournaments." I'm like, dude, there were 11 tournaments at the World Series in 1989 or 12 or something. Don't tell me I played in 100 tournaments in 1989. I played 6 because I didn't even play them all.
But over your life, you've have hundreds of these things, obviously. So I think with the high rollers specifically, I mean, how many high rollers have you played? 25 or 50? I mean, it's such a small number. Mm-hmm. Do you think it's fair to argue that the results over that are fairly meaningless? And then second off, when you talk about having won $1.8 million, I have your Hendon mob up here. I'm just going to assume that number is accurate. You did have
you can look it up.
No. I'm just pulling up Hendon mob basically just to like
look at scores. It could be 1.5. It could be 2.
Sure. I'm not nitpicking you, Phil. I'm using that as a baseline. You did have a score for 2.6 in $1 million buy-in. So
true.
The vast majority of that profit comes from one tournament. So, and that tournament score was only 2.6 buy-ins. So I guess my argument on the other side of this when it comes to high rollers is, given the small sample size and given what your ROI is, which it's possible it's negative, if all your winnings came from one huge tournament, it's possible you lost more than
I also finished 4th in the 300K, which I felt like I should have won that. I mean, I went card dead for fucking ever. And you look at the $1 million buy-in tournament, they showed the number of premium hands at the final table. They had me at 0 and Antonio had 13 just at that one final table. And that one was extraordinarily disappointing for me. Yeah. All right. So it's easy to come back and say, oh, well, the sample size is meaningless. But yes, I admit you are the only one who has 3 top 10s in the one drop, even though you played half, but the sample size is meaningless. I mean, when does the sample size become more meaningless? I won 26 out of 27 heads up against the pros in the real world. Well, that's a small sample size. Phil must be lucky. Well, I'm the luckiest motherfucker in history.
I love it. I love the confidence, and yeah, I mean, at some point results speak for themselves. So I'm with you on that. I guess I just think in high rollers, those events are tough, right? A lot of great players, typically not very many weaker players. And I want to segue this into talking about sort of like your style versus the GTO style, because I think that's the real stylistic difference between how you play, and I think why people would view you as a spot in some of these tournaments, correct or not. Your style still has a lot of playing the player and trying to see what they're doing and figure out what they're doing, and kind of hone in on that and really attack them in spots that other people may not be able to find. I think what that leads to is it leads to hands that you look like a genius, and then it leads to hands where you look foolish if you make a big laydown or whatever.
Oh, that's insightful. Yes. Let me expound upon that point for 1 second, Doug.
Sure.
You're onto something, and then I'll let you continue. I want to say this. It's amazing to me how people can watch me play heads up, right? I mean, I want to bring a few other things to light too. In the televised cash games, okay, it's just a fact that I won 25 out of 26 times, okay? 1 break even and 1 loss because I lost the last hand of the night. So take away that last hand of the night and the break even, and I won 24 out of 24. You can go back. I can name them all. They're all on my Twitter. Now, we played high stakes poker finally, and then that week I only won a little bit for the week. So there's finally some losing sessions in there. So people watch me and are like, I don't like the way Phil's playing. I don't like the way Phil's playing, but I'm killing everybody. They watch the heads up and they're like, that's not GTO. I don't like the way Phil's playing. The fact is that they don't even understand what I'm doing. And so then they choose to attack it and insult it. The difference is, if I were young, I would be like, wow, that's so good. I have to learn how to do that. And that's exactly what I did. When I saw Jack Keller do amazing things in Limit Hold'em, I actually spent the day watching him play. It annoyed the hell out of him. I watched him play an entire day and was writing stuff down, taking notes. No hole cards. How is he getting there? How does he keep doing it? It's obviously skill. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of frustrating to me. It's a generation of players that just don't understand how I win. And then therefore they attack me and the way I play. I mean, really?
Are you familiar with some of these solver outputs? Have you looked into this at all, or are you not interested in that?
Familiar with what?
So I guess let me ask this question differently. Do you agree that eventually
I've never used a solver. I studied GTO once for a couple of hours and won the tournament the next day, not by using GTO. That was luck. But I realized that's the first time I realized that they were floating me on every flop. And I was laying down a lot of those hands. And I'm like, all right, these guys are going to float me every flop. I'm going to bomb every turn. And if they hit, and then I'm thinking, okay, they picked up a draw on the turn. They seem weak to me. Now I just move it on the river. And I ended up winning the turn. And that was the first time that I realized the extent that they were floating me. And then it was just easier to play against them. I did win the tournament the next day. So that's a weird story. I don't mind you smiling for that, because I studied for 2 hours, won the tournament. That does sound funny, but that's a true story. It was just the first time I realized. So usually if I'd bet big on the flop and they call, I'd give up. And I realized there's whole generation is just, okay, if you're going to do that, I know exactly what to do. Bomb it on the turn.
And that's just a good play in theory too. But I want to go back and ask you and just a little more pointed on that question. So eventually poker is going to be either fully solved or very close to solved. Okay. At least it depends on computing power, how things get advanced. So there are things that we just know now are good or are bad in terms of at equilibrium. So if you do something outside of that, it can be good, but it's only good as an exploit against a certain player. So I guess my question then is, when you're making these plays that the computer will just say, this is not good, you don't want to do this, do you know that it's a play you shouldn't do versus an average player? You're just doing it to exploit your opponent? Or do you not believe in some of the outputs that these solvers are saying that how you should be playing?
Good question. I yeah, I do believe 70% of the outfits, and you know what? They could potentially solve poker. That's online poker. So as long as I have a cute way to say it to you. Let's say that someone has solved exactly how to play poker. So are they going to be standing 20 feet away from the table behind a wall when they press the button to move in? Or are they going to be sitting across from me where I can look at their facial tics as they move in? Tell me which.
Well, so obviously we're talking about the difference in online and live, correct? Right. So that's like what we're discussing.
You won't answer the question. You're not going to fall.
No, can you say the question more specifically? Sorry, I was laughing at the premise for a second.
You just have to play with my setup and say yes.
Okay.
Will they be sitting across from me as they put the chips into the pot?
They will be. They will definitely be.
And they will know what their whole cards are, right?
They will.
So then they're readable, right?
They are. And yeah, they are.
So, so then, until someone, now I know there's a guy with had the freaking like the mask over his head or whatever. Like he had that guy, maybe I can't read him, but but he still has to look at his whole cards, and there's going to be a glimpse of information there. And I think they're going to outlaw that. They're not going to let people, put something over their head. That's not really poker anymore. So then one theory is that we will solve poker perfectly, but they still have to. I still have to be able to look at them, right? Like, let's just say that your solver said you're supposed to move in on such and such and such and such on the river. And I have third pair, and I'm like, wow, he looks weak. I think I'll just call off my stack, which I've done 1,000 times. And then all of a sudden they're out of the tournament. So then what are they going to do? They're going to say, Phil Hellmuth, he reads so well, we can't bluff him anymore because because he will call me with third pair. So we've solved mathematically, but we can't play mathematically perfectly against Phil because he knows what we have somehow. We don't understand it. Does not compute. Does not compute.
Actually,
does not compute.
It's actually a little different than that, Phil, because if they're trying to play perfect, they don't care what you do. Like if I play you, I don't actually care what you do, right? Like if we play online, when you show your hand at the end of the hand, I don't even use it because I'm just going to try and play perfect or as close to perfect. So I'm like, okay, those are cards. You know what I'm saying? So the GTO young guys, I think it's fair to say this. They don't care what you have. So they're not going to change their math because you called with third pair. They're just going to keep trying to do the same thing.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Listen, we can start with the theory of omniscience, right? Now we can scale that back. Omniscience means, what's coming, what everybody has, and what's coming. Omniscient is to also know the future. We scale it back to perfect reading abilities, all right, which nobody has perfect. But if you know what their whole cards are in every situation, they will never win. I will win every single tournament, right? So then we recognize that. So then it's very easy for a mathematician to then say that's true. And then, all right, so then there's something there in that reading ability, which puts you at another level, right? And so when they're very busy, they're very hard working on the math, hit this, math that, right? And they just sit down with me and I'm like, he's weak, he's strong, he's weak, he's strong. I'm all in, I fold. And, you can make 10 great plays per tournament. And, if you look at, who's had the most deep runs in No Limit Hold'em in the last 5 years at the World Series, I'm certainly amongst the leaders, right? Who's had the most wins? I'm certainly amongst the leaders. That's the last 5 years. Go back in time and, and I'm that little speck at the top of the dot there, the off the chart, right? So they still have to look at their hands to play perfectly.
I'll tell you a story you're going to love. It was a few weeks back. Okay. I'm hanging out in the pool with one of my good buddies. We're having some drinks. He's kind of an online guy, but a little bit of live, a little bit of both. And we're quite a few beers in. And we bring up the Heads Up Duel thing. And he says, it's easy to kind of joke about Hellmuth and how he plays, but at some point he wins enough matches, enough times. At what point do we start to think something else is going on here? At what point do we start to think that maybe he's on to something that we just don't know what's going on? Because he just seems to win all the time. And there's no doubt about it. I want to talk about two hands. I talked about these with Daniel that I think were especially wild to me from your Heads Up match. Can you explain limp folding ace jack suited on the button? Because I simply, you limped ace jack suited, the ground raised, I believe 6 blinds, and you just limp folded, he had ace queen. Was that a live tell?
That was a combination. All right, so listen. So first of all, if you want the full power of that story, you're missing the first part of the story. I limp with king 10 of diamonds. He raised 7x, and I called him fairly quickly because I thought he was bluffing. He had jack 9 offsuit. He fucking made jacks and 9s, which was very annoying, that hand. I did bet the turn because I thought he was so weak. I thought like he couldn't even have an ace. So I fired out. The flop came, I don't know, 8-9-5, and then an ace came. He did get one bet of me out on the turn. And I think I would have bet a king or a 10 on the river. That's how good I was that hand, right? So how do you explain? No one can explain except knowing the reading ability, how I could call 7 big blinds with king 10 of diamonds, limp call. And then when I had ace jack of spades, limp fold for 7 bigs. Once I thought he was super, super strong. Once I thought he was super, super weak. I went with my reads. That's the difference between winning and losing. If you don't look at the whole match, that's all you need to know. Now, I will tell you this, Doug. There was all kinds of additional pressure on me that hand because when he 7x'd and I called with king 10 of diamonds, I knew the next time he exactly 7x'd he would be super strong. So that's the logic piece, right?
I don't think that so I've played Daniel heads up. Okay. I know Daniel's heads up game pretty well. I don't think he's the kind of guy that plays like that, where if he 7x is strong, the next it'll be weak or whatever. I think that he has his team. I know I'm kind of familiar with his team of guys, and he's trying to play much closer to the GTO style. I think if he had the type of hand that needed to raise, I think he would have just done that either way. Do you?
No, because he specifically talked about wanting to try to exploit me. So that means he watched the second match, and that means that input goes in. Phil called 7x with king 10 of diamonds. Okay, so I disagree with you, but that's neither here nor there. That's just a part of the equation, is the logic. The bigger part, and I mean, you can't imagine how tough a laydown that was, because in order to make that fold, I swear to God, my instincts are he's loaded, he has it, you're in bad shape. He just has you crushed somehow, some way. My instincts are going crazy, but I'm a human being, and I can't help but think if he has whatever ace 10 suited, they're going to run this hand 100 million times. And all these idiot critics of mine that just think that it's math. Here is their example to nail Phil Hellmuth. Well, he folded ace jack of spades. I couldn't help but think about it because I'm a human being. And so I'm like, fuck, you are going to look fucking, I actually thought this, you're going to look like so fucking bad if you fold this. You are going to look, and they're going to run that hand 100 million times. And I finally said, I don't care. I think he has it. And that's what makes me, is this fold. I'm not always right, but I'm going to trust my instincts, and I'm going to win this match or lose this match based on my instincts. So I folded it. I was also aware that never in the history of televised poker has anyone folded ace jack suited for 20 big blinds or 30 big blinds, never mind 7. We've never seen that fold before in history. You can go back and look at 10 million hands. No one's ever folded this, Doug. Do you agree? Yes or no?
I've never seen it, but I did see a hand on Poker After Dark where you limp folded queens with 3 blinds. I believe it was 3 blinds. I saw you do that.
3 blinds. No.
7 blinds?
More than that.
Okay. I'll look it up. Maybe I got it. If I got it wrong, my bad.
More than that.
But yeah. But other than other folds you have made, I have not seen anything like that.
So what's really funny, Doug, is your mind went to not all the literally there's thousands of amazing folds I made. And your mind went to the one fold, 1 out of 1,000. So if you and I want to have a battle, I'll show you 1,000 videos right now of great folds I made, and you can find one. Your mind went to that one. What makes people do that? Why did you go there? What makes people do that?
In part because it was incorrect, but also because limp folding queens is the most absurd fold. I've never seen someone do that in my entire life. That is the most absurd fold of all time. Pre-flop.
That wasn't heads up either, by the way. So
I think it was fold to the small blind, I think.
yeah,
Could be
it
wrong.
was like we were playing 6-handed, and it was against an amateur. And then the next hand I had the next hand I got it in with kings, which was lucky, but yeah.
All right, so a mixture of instincts, possibly game flow, maybe some live tell. Do you have? Are there live tell aspects that you kind of don't want to tip your hand a little bit, or is it just more of a game flow kind of thing? Because that was a game flow sort of response on the ace jack suited.
Both. I mean,
Okay.
It's a matter of trusting your instincts, right? I mean, what's weird to me, there's a whole generation of you may or may not be a part of it that doesn't understand what to do if you make a good read. A whole generation. So when someone goes all in and you have ace, where someone raises 7x there and you have ace jack of spades, your generation is trained just to re-raise it every time, right? And it's just a re-raise and then sometimes be cute and call. But the cute move for your generation is to call, but you're going to re-raise with it. A lot of money's going in there. And so at what point do you guys say, oh my God? I mean, so what you're looking for immediately is you're not even looking up. You're like, Mass says do this, Mass says do that, Mass says this, Mass says that. What did Hellmuth do? Does not compute, must be a bad play, does not compute, must be a bad play. And I'm like, what the fuck? Which is why I attacked Nick Schulman, because I folded king jack against king queen and king 10 against king queen within an hour. And your generation is must re-raise, must call. Your generation is going to raise the button and call the re-raise. You're going to have 6 big blinds, 7 big blinds every time. I lost 1 big blind. And so your whole generation chooses to say, does not compute, must be a bad play. And then Nick has, the temerity to say, wow, Hellmuth, that was a bad fold. Even though the preponderance of evidence sitting in front of him is that was an amazing fold. So I'm at home dancing on the ceiling going, wow, they're going to give me I'm going to get all this global praise for laying down king jack offsuit for 1 big blind. And instead, global criticism. But the hand is right there. You can see it. You can run it again and again. Yeah. Same thing with ace jack of spades, right? You know what I mean? Like no one on the planet in your generation understands that play. And so there's a disconnect here. Either I'm a delusional old idiot, and I'm 57, so maybe I'm getting close to that. I still think I'm great at poker. So I'm either a delusional old idiot, or maybe I'm seeing some stuff that the rest of the world doesn't see.
That's completely possible. And
well, no, there's only 2 possibilities. I'm either delusional wrong and the luckiest fucking player in history by 10x to just keep winning, playing what is suboptimal poker, or my reading ability is ramped up to a level which your generation does not understand. One of the 2 exists.
And there can be mixes of both, right? I believe. I mean, there can be points where you're making great reads and then points where you've just gone too far. I think that's there could be a blend, right? It's some mixture. I think some people would lean more one way or the other. I think there's clearly something going on in some of these hands, because sometimes the plays that you make are just, when someone does something truly baffling and it's correct, you kind of have to take a step back and think about what exactly is going on here. And
not your generation, you just hammer it.
By the way, I'm not new school anymore, Phil. I'm in my 30s. I'm mid school now. Okay, I'm not.
You're not going to let me hammer you. It's fun going like this.
I already got that when we played some heads up. It was plenty for me. Okay, so let's talk about the other big hand. The hand I'm gonna talk about. It was the 8-3 suited hand. What a wild hand! We've talked about this hand a little bit on the podcast with Daniel. Can you talk a little bit about that hand? Was there some sort of how were you able to make that play with 8-3 suited? Can you walk me through what was going on in your mind when you 3-bet 8-3 suited, faced a 4-bet, 5-bet 8-3 suited, check called 8 high on the flop, and then led on the flush draw turn? What was going through your head there?
My head was. Listen, I'll be honest. I mean, you anybody that saw the cards, it's like I got lucky in the second match against Daniel when I overplayed ace-4 and he had 2 8s. The last hand of the match, right? I bluffed him 35 times in that match. You can go back and watch. But I got lucky in the last hand, right? or he would have pulled even with me on chips, right? So it was almost like the deck said, all right, you got lucky there. We're going to smack you for a quick 50,000. So maybe I went from 200 down to 150 or whatever. I mean, there's nothing I could do. I mean, it was really ugly start. And so I was waiting for my time. You know, there's this debate I had after the second match. Now I know I bluffed him 35 times and I know everybody hates being bluffed. So I was coming into that match. I'm not going to bluff. 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 But I was having trouble sleeping at night. It might sound funny to you, but I know after all these years, if I'm having trouble sleeping at night, there's something wrong with the strategy. So finally, 2 days before the match, I'm like, you have to use your instincts maximally. Boom, slept like a baby the next 2 nights. You have to go for it. You have to use your instincts maximally. Otherwise, so the right solution presented itself to me. So this was the first opportunity I had. I thought he was super weak. So now when it came Jack 10-6, so I made it 35,000. I mean, by the way, he wins the match here if he can somehow muster up, you know, an amazing play here. And but I just didn't think he could. So what happened was, I think he raised, I 3-bet, he 4-bet, and I'm like, he doesn't fucking have it. And I knew after all the times I 3-bet him, he was going to 4-bet me light. He had to 4-bet me light. He had to make a fucking stand. I had done it the second match. Dude, when you get bluffed 35 times, go back and look. It's like 35 times, right? I mean, I was just fucking smack, right?
Ouch. This is getting pretty aggressive here.
No, I love Daniel. I mean, this is just poker, man. It's just poker. But I know that, you know, he's going to make a stand. And so, all right, I have to ready to man up. So I just went for the 5-bet with the 8-3. Now the flop came Jack 10-6. I'd already checked in the dark. Look back, I'm checking in the dark for a lot of reasons, but I want to see his reaction on the flop. So when I check in the dark, I'm staring at him as he stares at the flop, right? And he makes this bet of like 21,000, let's say, into 70. And I'm like, he doesn't have it. My mind is, he doesn't have it. What are we going to do? Are we going all in? And I said, man, he might have king, queen, and he might just call an all in and you're just dead. So let's wait for a card to come off, right? And then we're betting no matter what comes. And so a 6 came off. It turned out it gave me a club draw, but I was 100% betting big there no matter what came off. And now I bet out big. And now, I mean, to his credit, he's sitting on deuces. 5 bets before the flop. He's studying. So he sensed something was wrong too. I sensed something was wrong. He sensed something is wrong. But Daniel has decided not to use, you know, I mean, I think Daniel is one of the best readers in the game, but I think he's decided to just trust math more than his own reads, in my opinion. I think Daniel's one of the all-time greats. For sure, he's one of the all-time greats. I've never said anything, but all I'm saying, it's not controversial. I think he's, you know, I think he's using math a little bit more than his reads right now. And I just made a good bet and boom, won that pot. And now we're even again, or maybe I took a little lead. So that half an hour of him winning every hand or whatever was eliminated. And now it felt like a level match.
It was an impressive hand.
I think people freaked out when I went back and looked at it. I literally called 21,000 with nothing, like super quickly on the flop. That's what freaked people out the most.
On the flop, by the way, in GTO land, when you 5-bet small, I think you're near 100% c-bet on, I want to say, every board or almost every board, because your range is so many aces, kings, queens that you want to just bet every flop. So a dark check is the kind of thing why if someone's an online player and they see that and they think, oh, 3 big blind mistake here from Phil on the flop, like, or 2 or 1.5, depending on the board, whatever it is. It might be a little different on Jack 10-6 because a lot of the hands that Daniel might 4-bet, like let's say 4-bet a king, queen, ace, jack, those are going to call the 5-bet, and now those have connected. So maybe that flop is more reasonable to have checks, but that's an example of the kind of difference between what your style would be and what kind of the online style would.
I mean, dude, the blinds were like 2,400. He bet 21,000 on the flop. That I picked up an extra 21 by checking the flop. I mean, you know how many big blinds that is?
That is some apex
That's
predator
one way to
shit.
look at it. And, I understand. You know, I understand the way you guys are looking at it. I got it.
So with the Heads Up Duel format, Is there anyone you're going to be playing Tom Dwan soon, right?
Yeah,
I saw that, right? Are you excited to
next
play
week.
Tom Dwan? Um, I don't know. What are the odds like on that? Are people ever going to give you credit, Phil, or what do you think?
I think this is the first time they made me a small favorite on some sites. I don't know though. I didn't look, and I don't care. I mean, to me, if they put me as an underdog, then it just kind of motivates me and aggravates me even more. Really, I mean, it's the strangest thing I've ever seen. Like, I mean, it's almost like when I tell you that I won 24 out of 25 televised cash games, it's like it goes in one ear and out the other ear. It's like they don't even believe it. They believe it, but they're like, oh, that's Phil just talking. No, go check the fucking facts. When I tell you that I've won all these heads up matches, it's like, I don't know. So for some reason, it doesn't compute to people. And they're like, because they don't understand what I'm doing, right? And if you don't understand what I'm doing, then that's fine. But I mean, like, if you don't understand what I'm doing, then of course I'm an underdog in every match.
Well, the good people of the podcast here, I always like to give them a chance to make some money. If you believe in what Phil is telling you here, you can get Phil for plus 110 on poker shares. So apparently they're not valuing enough of these.
I'm an underdog again.
Yet again, but at some point, I guess like now people can make their decision on their own.
I mean, Tom Dwan and I played heads up in the NBC championship twice, right?
I remember that.
Once we got a million big blinds in, and I had aces and he had tens, and he hit a 10. And then the next year, I put some crazy 5-bet bluff in, and won that match. And that was kind of a fun heads up. But I also like Tom. He was just like I like you, Doug, even though you're mean to me half the time, which is true. But I mean, like, Tom was at my house. We were at my fire pit smoking cigars and drinking, like, I don't know, 3-4 months ago. Like, he was in San Francisco. He looked me up. He's funny. He brought some crypto superstar with him and told this person, I don't know, Phil can be a little bit weird, and like gave the pre-warning to hang out with me. This person was like, told Tom, what the fuck? Why did you warn me? I love hanging out with this guy. He's completely reasonable and so much fun.
Wait.
Like, come on, Tom. What the
fun,
fuck, man?
Fun, yes, but reasonable, Phil. I don't know if I can go with reasonable.
Well,
you're a fun guy to hang out with.
You buy into the fact that I'm delusional, right? Not reasonable.
No, I didn't say delusional. I'm just saying there's
Name
only one. There's only one Phil Hellmuth.
Unreasonable.
There's
Name
only
one instance.
There's only one Phil Hellmuth. There's
Name
only
one instance where I'm unreasonable. I'm curious.
Well, the way that I'm not trying to say this in a negative way. I'm saying that you're not just when I hear reasonable, I think of kind of an average person. I think that you speak your mind on a lot of things. The name dropping can get a bit excessive at times.
Name dropping has nothing to do with being reasonable. That's ego.
Well, we're talking. I think some people would say that name dropping is not reasonable. Some people might say that.
Well, so then if that's all you hang out with is names, so you just never say who you're hanging out with, and you want to go. So you want to go the other direction, modesty, to be reasonable. Is that what I'm hearing?
There are some tweets that I think are a little bit unreasonable. I'm not trying to take the opposite side here, Phil. I'm just saying I think that of a lot of things.
No,
when I think of your name, that's not the first thing that jumps at me. Phil Hellmuth, reasonable. It's not the first thing.
I mean, to me, I'm very aligned with reasonable. You look at me politically, neither side. I'll be filming with Ted Cruz this week, but I'm not a Republican. I'll go to DC and I might play with some Supreme Court justices there that are Democrats. And so I consider myself very reasonable when it comes to these things. I get along with everybody. I can talk to everybody. You know this about me. I can talk with anybody and everybody away from the table and even at the table. Now, okay, you might say when Phil loses it over losing a pot, that's your argument for him being unreasonable, me being a poker brat. Fine. That argument I accept. That's more like within the realm of the game where I'm just losing it. But away from the table, the reason why I'm on 12 advisory boards is because I'm exactly reasonable. The reason why I can talk with extreme Democrats and Republicans is because I'm reasonable. So I pride myself on being exactly that, reasonable. Now,
I think you're personable, Phil, I think it's a little bit different. I think you're a very easy guy to hang out with and get along with, having no cameras, just me and you or in a group, whatever. But being personable and being reasonable are different things.
Name one instance where I've been unreasonable.
I'm not trying to turn this into I pick at all of the reasons you're unreasonable.
I asked you, bring it. I want to hear one instance.
I'd have to think about what I'd have to make a list or something. Don't
you think if I were unreasonable, you would be able to come up with like five.
Your persona is unreasonable. The hashtag positivity all the time, the doing this, the going there, it's an unreasonable person.
But that's different.
Persona.
You said Phil's persona can be unreasonable. That I agree with. But to say that Phil himself is unreasonable, I think I'm super reasonable. So that's the difference.
I would push back a little on that, Phil, because some people put on a real act in public. And you're not one of the guys that I feel like it's an act. I feel like it's genuine. And part of your persona is that you say what you're doing, you're living your best life, hashtag positivity. And I don't feel like that's fake. I feel like that is who you are. And so
yes, but so because I'm on private jets all the time and hanging out with the world's biggest superstars, and so because my Twitter, let me finish. Because my Twitter is inspirational and let's call it aspirational. This is what you can look. This is what it can be like if you're a champion in poker. You can be on the private jets. You can hang out with billionaires. You can hang out with Drake and have dinner with all these amazing people. That's very aspirational. That doesn't have anything to do with being unreasonable or not. That's a choice that I make, to be aspiration, to have my tweets be aspirational. And I will tell you what, a lot of people follow me and they smile a lot. They're happy. You know what I mean? They're like, that's cool. That's cool. So, there's people out there kind of rooting for that. Wow, I want to see the next jet. I mean, like there's some jets I was on the last week. I can't even post them because I don't want to get in trouble.
That's very reasonable, Phil. That's very reasonable. Very reasonable.
Well, it's reasonable because I was requested by my friends to.
I guess it depends on how you want to look at the word reasonable. If you're trying to mean that you're logical, that's a word I would agree with. If you're trying to say that you're personable, I would agree with that. Reasonable, it has a lot of latitude, right? So maybe we'll have to run a Twitter poll after this.
Do you think that if you and I sat down and we talked for 12 hours a day for 3 days, do you think you would find me? You think you would find something that I stand for, would argue for, in 3 days, 12 hours a day, that you would think would be unreasonable? Even one thing.
Well, it's hard to know what conversations are going to take place over those 3 days.
No. Listen, what's reason? We talked earlier. Okay, we talked earlier, and we said, and I admitted to be reasonable. I said either I'm delusional or the world doesn't understand what I'm doing. That's nothing but reasonable. So I'm not saying that I'm right. What I'm saying is one or two. This is as reasonable as you can be. Yeah. This exists or this exists, and you and I could talk 12 hours a day for 3 days. We could get drunk 3 days in a row, and you would never see me be unreasonable. You might see me say, hey, let's bet 10-1 on me hitting a cold basketball shot. That's not unreasonable. I fucking hit it.
Phil, the point of that story is a good example. The fact that happened is so unreasonable. It's 2 a.m. in Philly or Pittsburgh, every which city we were in, and we're headed down to some janky basketball in some rundown court to shoot a 3 for $10,000. That's super unreasonable from both of us. That's not.
Why is that unreasonable?
It's just unreasonable. It's just not a reasonable thing to do. That's the fun
stuff in life, man.
I know there's nothing wrong with having an unreasonable life.
I love doing that stuff. That's my life.
Do you have a?
I'm out there having fun.
You have an unreasonable life, right? Would you agree with that?
Unreasonable life? I don't know. I mean, I think you're stretching the word unreasonable to insane.
I didn't mean that. Is your life insane?
My life is like let's say the life that I have is like a movie, right? I mean, it's like a movie. It's crazy fun, right? But at no point at this age do I lose track of the fact that this is the movie. It's amazing. I'll put it out on Twitter. I'll talk about the movie. But I've been married for 32 years. Okay. I have kids, that are amazing children that my wife and I have raised. And I've spent a fucking ton of time in therapy with my wife, the two of us, working on our relationship, which I basically means working on myself, right? And so I'm hanging out with literally the smartest people in the world and trying to keep up with them, right? And I think that, and some Democrats, some Republicans.
When you say that though, literally the smartest people in the world, that is such an unreasonable thing to say. How do you know they are literally the most smart people in the world? How do you know that? How do you know that?
How do you rate Chamath on reasonable? On smartness,
Extremely smart, but I still wouldn't say he's one of the smartest people in the world.
Okay, let's retract that a little bit and say that I'm just with an amazing group of people. Do you agree with that?
Sure. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, occasionally my words don't exactly match my intent.
Let's move on a little bit here. I think we got a little bit of a rut because I have a couple other subjects I want to talk about still.
This was great though. I like this discussion about reasonable because I think that the people out there can actually say, well, you know what? Maybe Phil's is reasonable. He does live an insane lifestyle. But I will say this: the movie that I live in, the high stakes poker all over the world, the high stakes poker, that I play, the amazing people that I'm able to run with. That's the movie. But now I'm home, and in about a week I'll be sending out aspirational, inspirational tweets. But listen, this book right here, I'll say this, Doug. Do you think I'm coming back to the reason thing? Tony Robbins tells people to buy my books in his advanced seminars. That's impossible. That's a mind blower. That blows my mind. Okay, I wrote a book, 8 Life Tips. Tony Robbins tells people to buy my book in this seminar. Sheryl Sandberg has an amazing jacket blurb on this book. I'm going to help millions of people get better, think better. I just saw a tweet 2 days ago where someone said, hey, our high school class, bought your book and we're studying. It's pretty cool. And so that is kind of, I don't think that someone, I think that the more reasonable are you, the more truth you see. But I do think big. I'll give you that. I think big. I live big, and maybe that can be perceived in a weird way. Anyway, all right, go ahead. Next.
Okay. All right, and I'm with you. And by the way, I think mindset stuff is really important. So viewing the world in a way where you are in the right place at the right time is important. I think that book could do a lot of good.
Look, I would say this is weird, right? You're always in the right place at the right time. It's the cover of my book. And since then, there are times where I've literally felt the center of the universe for a second or two. I'm not stupid. I don't think I'm always at the center of the universe, but you're always in the right place at the right time is on the cover of my book, right? I'm trying to teach the world that. And I've had some I could tell you a story about a company that just would blow your mind. I'm not going to do it because it's going to take 5 or 10 minutes and you want to use the time for something else.
Sure. But
it's just weird, man, the way I've been able to connect founders with the perfect situation,
Yeah, you have a real talent for networking and getting involved in situations that can lead to big things. Let's talk about this hand because I have to bring it up. It may be my favorite hand that ever played on TV, Phil. When you had Queen 10 on high stakes poker and you jammed about $100,000 over my raise on Jack 9-8, and I had 10-7 in the big one. I check raise and folded. What were your thoughts on that hand?
You made an amazing laydown. I do think you made one assumption that was wrong. You thought I was the big blind. You told me later.
Oh no. I thought I didn't assume something wrong, but I thought that you bet the flop.
Right. I didn't bet the flop either. So first of all, I don't play Queen 10 under the gun very often. So that was just really weird. I happened to raise with Queen 10 because I hadn't played. So this is just logic. I hadn't played a hand in a while. So I have to exploit. I have to raise with Queen 10. So I raised under the gun with Queen 10. I think you thought somehow I was in the straddle or the big blind. I don't straddle too much. So that helped you a little bit because it's hard to put Phil Hellmuth on Queen 10 offsuit under the gun. That's the only negative I'll say. So 1% negative. But dude, your laydown was 99%. One of the best laydowns I've ever seen since I played poker. I'm not saying that because you're here. I'll say something else too. It's amazing to me how that hand can go out. And then you have, even if 10 people say, oh, I would have folded that hand. It's just, people are just, frankly, stupid. sometimes, right? I mean, yeah, I mean, I love humanity, but there's some people out there. Oh, I would have folded that hand too. Nobody folds that fucking hand, okay? And all these people that said, well, it was Phil and he did this and he did that. Bullshit. I could just as easily have had a set of nines there, a set of jacks there. I mean, but you got to the next level on that, and so somehow, some way, and I gave you tremendous credit, and then at some point I opened myself up. I should have just been quiet. Once you showed the 10-7 and we started talking, then I kind of that was stupid of me there. I should have just shut up, because you might have folded anyway. But I also
you shouldn't have said you could have the blockers. That
never have said that.
That was bad. I thought I was gonna fold, and then you said that, and if I called and lost after you said that, you talk about not being able to sleep at night. I don't think I could sleep at night. If I said, "What do you have?" You say blockers. I call and you show me the nuts. I don't think I could sleep at night.
Can you write me a check for 90,000, please? Because you owe me 90,000 from that hand. Because that fold was truly spectacular. It was really amazing. And, and something happened to me when I filmed Rob's game, when I filmed high stakes poker. I usually am ready to risk 100,000 a day. So I was risking, I believe, 100% of my money in that game, and 100% of my money in Rob's game. I set out $400,000. I'm super conservative with my money, legendarily conservative with my money. I feel like my management skills are really, really good. So super conservative. So in that, I was playing 100,000. I was only risking 100 that day. And I just decided to protect, and didn't play poker, played protect. Unfortunately, we looked at the turn card. It was an offsuit deuce. So in no world are you ever getting away from that hand with the offsuit deuce. And so there's just so many other ways I could have played it. I could have made it 20K. You can't get away. I could have smooth called. You can't get away. I could have bet the flop. You can't get away. And so I found the only way, and then started talking. But even then, you can't get away. You can't get away.
Well, I think a lot of options were good. Their calling has a little bit of appeal because James Board's still in the hand of the button. He had nothing, but he could pretty easily have a piece of something, and you might want him to splash around a little bit. That could have been reasonable. I think 3-betting the flop is fine. I think jamming is just too big though, because if you jam, you're risking so much to win so little. And I can have queen 10 a lot, and the button can actually have some queen 10 as well. So there's a lot of people that can have queen 10 here, even if you don't have it a lot. I can have it a ton. I'm gonna play queen 10 like this mainly. I call pre-flop, raise flop. I mean my main line. So when you jam into both of us, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't make the call. I just didn't have. And by the way, earlier you were mentioning when you make a laydown and it circles around everywhere and you have to relive it over and over again, and you try and do the right thing anyway. That was what was going through my head here.
Yeah, I know.
In my heart too. In my heart, I'm thinking I have to fold here. But if I'm wrong, Phil, if I was wrong, that would have been a career-defining hand. When I'm long gone, people look back. Doug, what are your thoughts? I could never get over that fold. That would be like the defining thing, the defining hand if I folded. And if you had tens, said I had the blockers, I folded, and you showed tens, I don't think I can live that down. I just think that's it. Right? How do you live that down? And so I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, I think I should fold, but almost just the chance of having to live a life where that happened, it's almost worth the money to call.
Yeah. No, I mean, I actually agree with you. The same thought I had with that ace jack of spades against Daniel. I mean, it's flashing through my mind. They are going to hammer me if this is wrong, And so that was the one hand that I then met with Brent Hanks after I won the match. And I'm like, I saw him and so I saw, and I said, hey guys, listen, this ace jack, it just really concerns me. I could have been wrong. I never asked Daniel. I did believe him when he said, oh, I had you. How do you get away? I believed him, but I didn't know because he lied a lot. So the next day, Brent Hanks texted me, ace queen in caps. And I was like, woo-hoo-hoo-hoo.
Nice. Exciting.
And in your case, queen 10. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo.
When you didn't show, I felt better because it's a TV game, right? Eventually eventually everyone's going to know. So if you owed me that hard, you're gonna show. you'd have to be a true ice. You have to be an ice cold killer to bluff there and then say I had it, and then let me find out on the replay that it was actually a bluff. I don't think most people are capable of that. It's just too tempting.
But that's interesting. I never show my bluffs ever.
Oh,
But I'll show it when I have it most of the time. I never show my bluffs. Now, I might have shown one, or whatever, when I'm playing high stakes poker with my friends occasionally, but I just basically never show bluffs. I want everybody to assume I have it all the time. And then I can read them better, Once I start showing bluffs, then the reads get messed up. You know what I mean? Like, I like this. Everybody thinks I'm super tight all the time, Phil, because there's certain assumptions that they make that I can then remake. It makes my life easier when things are clear.
That makes sense. If you have a good intuition for what people are doing, I don't use reads very often. So for me, it's less important to try and keep them sort of pure in that way. Right. So that makes sense that you're trying to do that. Do you still, so playing on high stakes poker, it was definitely a bit of a bucket list item for me. I'd never played in it before in my life before that session. Is there an excitement when you play in that show? Because it's such an iconic show. It's obviously a little bit different, been a bit of a gap. The production is a little bit different. I actually think I prefer the way the set and stuff looked before, or had a cozy kind of feel to it. Now it's a little more of a grand stage kind of thing. But regardless, do you still get an excitement when you show up to play on that show?
Yes. Listen, I mean, it has to be said, as much as I won 25 out of 25 times in the cash games. In the past, my record was horrendous. So, I mean, a lot of times I will tell you this though. I mean, I wasn't playing a lot of Hold'em when we'd film in 08, 9, 10, 11, 12. In the cash games, I didn't do well. Now, at Poker After Dark tournaments, I had an extraordinary record. Extraordinary. After starting with the 6th, the 5th, and a 4th, I had like first, second, and third for like 3 years straight on Poker After Dark, mostly first and second. So that's okay. But in those high stakes cash games, I mean, and then, dude, I mean, like, I wasn't bankrolled enough. I mean, for that, I mean, I'd be coming in there with exactly 100. A lot of times I played super, super tired, and I wasn't the same player in 2008 tired that I am today. Now I can be on 3 days. Now I know, now I can be up 3 days and sit down in a high stakes cash game. And I know when I need to walk away. I know when I'm off. I know all that stuff that comes with awareness of yourself. But I didn't have the awareness of myself that I should have had, when I was, say, 39 or 40. And so, my record in those days was bad. So you look back at those old high stake poker, cash games, whatever we played, I didn't play in them a lot. And when I did play, I didn't play my best. So that's why it felt amazing for me starting in 2014 when I started filming to go on this massive streak of winning. And I'm ready for those games. But I was especially ready for Rob's game. And then high stakes poker, it's still a thrill. And, I'm still mad at myself from when I had 2 tens against Dwan on that show. I mean, like, the hand just got away from me somehow. And, I'm supposed to win a big pot. I also folded 8s for 11K, which, I would have had like 500,000 afterwards if I played the hand. But yeah, anyway, but I mean, that's the Phil Hellmuth of 2021 making that fold 2020. I don't mind as much. What I do now is a lot more solid ground.
Nice. Sounds like you found your footing there, and I think that kind of stuff comes with experience. And there is an advantage in having been in these situations before and having
huge.
Yeah. People
listen,
underestimate that.
I wouldn't play Hold'em for 5 months and I'd come in and film 100K buy-in game. And maybe I'd play a little online. I wasn't ready. I mean, whatever, there's lots of excuses. But I mean, now I play a lot of high stakes poker. I'm completely used to it. I'm completely in my element and comfortable.
Nice. Let's talk about the World Series of Poker for a moment here. Bit of a weird year for the World Series of Poker. Obviously, it's going to be in a different series of months. It's kind of weird to not have it during the summer. Obviously, last year it was canceled, so it's nice to have it. But having it in the fall time slot feels kind of weird, right? It's not something that it doesn't feel normal. It doesn't feel sort of right in a way. But we are looking like we're going to actually have it. I wanted to get your feedback on the changes or some of the rules regarding how tournaments are going to work, because I'm seeing a lot of pushback from people, the way that they're going to handle this. And look, I don't know what the right way to handle it is. Is there a right way to handle it? I don't know, but it's looking like they have pretty full authority to pull people in and out of tournaments as they sort of see fit. They did tweet an update a couple of days ago saying that basically, if you have been exposed but you are fully vaccinated within the appropriate timing parameters and remain asymptomatic, then they'll let you stay. So it's kind of brutal for people who are not vaccinated. And I'm not trying to go deep down the rabbit hole on vaccination. There are plenty of resources that people can look at, but typically speaking, do you think it's okay for them to be making policies like this where it's going to pretty aggressively limit the ability for people that are not vaccinated? Because frankly, if you are not vaccinated, how are you really supposed to play in this environment where they can just pull you because you're not vaccinated compared to people that are? It's really going to have a pretty drastic effect, I think, on the series. What are your thoughts?
Phil, this is you to me. Phil, I don't really want you to get political or comment on this stuff, but twist. Would you please get political and comment on this stuff?
Great to have you, by the way. Great to have you.
Really nice job, except that I decipher that shit too quickly. I'm like, zip. So, yeah, I mean, I do think so. Of course, I'm going to come with a more non-controversial answer. Non-controversial answer, and that is that I actually feel bad for. It's actually very interesting to watch the world as we're watching it today, with having whole groups not getting vaccinated and whole groups getting vaccinated, science versus non-science, but then other stuff, twisted in. And so for me personally, of course, I got vaccinated as soon as I possibly could, but I would never tell someone else to get vaccinated. But then you read these articles about this or that or the other thing. And, I don't know, to me personally, for me to comment and say one thing, then I'm going to have a lot of people criticizing me, or another thing, I'll have a lot of people criticizing me on this side. So, I mean, I guess you're not going to get a good answer from me there. I will say, for me personally, which is easy to address, and I hadn't thought about this at all till you asked the question, but it occurs to me that when I'm playing at the World Series of Poker, I will have a mask with me. And I think I have the super uncomfortable freaking thing that my wife got me, this N95, right? It's really uncomfortable with two straps over it. As uncomfortable as that mask is, I will have it with me at the World Series of Poker. And sadly, I'm not saying I'll use it all the time. Sadly, the minute someone looks sick, that thing's going to be on. The minute someone looks sick, because I don't trust other people. And in specific, I don't trust other people when they have money on the line, where it's a negative free roll for them, right? You can count on me personally that if I'm on day 2 of a tournament and I feel like there's some chance I have COVID, I will, there's a good chance I'll just pull myself, or I'll go have a PCR test. Now, I don't understand why they don't have PCR tests. These tests are cheap, and you get, I don't know how many times is it PCR? Is that the one that takes 90 seconds? I have had a test. They say it takes 10 minutes, but I've been tested a bunch of times with these tests. It takes 90 seconds to find out, right? And yeah, sometimes it's a false positive. Okay, so you spent $2 on the test, spend another $2 and see if, if it was a false negative or false positive, right? So to me, it would be very simple. If someone seems sick, give them the $3 test. I don't understand why they don't have 10,000 tests there. That's $30,000.
Are there shortages on those testing kits? I'm not. At one point there was, but I think that might have been earlier. If it could be some kind of shortage,
this is months from now, right?
True.
This is months from now. Why in the world? If I'm the World Series of Poker, I'm thinking, okay, we want the World Series of Poker. All the players want it. We all want to be there. Why don't you have these tests? And the minute someone starts coughing, it's not going to be perfect, right? Because someone may be carrying it, right? Someone may be carrying, listen, I was with Mike the Mouth Matisow on a Sunday night, for a month ago or whatever, right?
He seems like he's doing well, by the way.
Yeah, we hung out all night together. And we went over and we played a Baccarat together at the Aria Hotel, Las Vegas. We played Baccarat, high stakes Baccarat together, splitting a little bit. I was taking half of them, just messing, just for us, just having fun, really. And then I find out, that was Sunday. I find out on Tuesday that he has COVID, and I'm like, and people are like, why didn't you get it? And then maybe I got lucky. Maybe I had, I didn't want the Moderna vaccine. I wanted the other one, the Pfizer, but I got Moderna. I mean, I took what I could get. I signed up.
I did
and
too.
It turns out that, there's a lot of articles out now, legitimate articles out in the last few days saying that Moderna is much better against Delta. And then, I have a concierge doctor. And I'm older. So I don't want to say old. I want to say older. so, you have your blood drawn once a year, whatever. And just a smart move. And turned out that, that they measure that. And so I was really high. I was like 19. So even though I had the vaccine like 6 months ago, I'm super high in my protection still. And so, but it opens a whole can of worms, and a can of worms, which basically everyone can see both sides of. I don't want to commit to either side, but I do think that a PCR test will work even if someone is not symptomatic, right? But then, unfortunately, there's going to be, one person a week or once every 2 weeks that might be at your table, maybe, and that person has COVID, but doesn't know they have COVID and has no good reason to know they have COVID.
Another thing that can happen too here is false positives seem to happen a decent amount. I just know someone recently, and they were about to travel somewhere. They got the tested positive. Oh shit. And then they said, I feel no symptoms. They got retested a bunch of times. And every single one of them was negative.
Yep.
So I don't know at scale how much that's happening, but let's say you show up at your tournament, you don't have COVID, it says positive, you have to set the day and lose your stack. That would be pretty infuriating for people.
I think everybody would ask for another 2 tests, though, right?
Yeah, but then are we going to let people in that? What's the line that you have to draw, right? I mean,
I would feel like if you're on day 2 or day 3 and you get tested and that's positive, that you can demand that they spend $3 on another test. Would be my opinion, but I know that the chances of someone coming up with 2 of them is way less than 1% to have two false positives. And you know what? And then maybe charge the person for the 3rd test, because everyone's going to say, all right, if you want that 3rd test, give us $50 or $100. It would be better. That pays for 33 tests. And every poker player is going to say yes. And now the poker players themselves end up paying for the tests.
That makes
sense.
Do you think it's an appropriate time for the World Series to come back?
I do. Yes. Listen, my wife and I were on a flight to Vegas when we looked down and the president said we don't have to wear any masks. Now, the interesting thing was that of the 350 experts, not one of them thought it was the right time or expected this to come. Now, of course, I personally and my friends thought maybe it was an okay time for that, right? And then, now there's new evidence, right? Now there's new evidence with Delta kind of sweeping, but back then Delta was just emerging when they did that. And so it was really interesting too, because literally when I arrived in Vegas, they had all the plastic stuff up, which I didn't notice really. It didn't bother me except poker. When you're playing blackjack, who cares if you have the plastic walls up or these other games? And then literally the next day they were gone. And after a few hours, I'm like, oh shit, they're gone. And so, but now of course, Vegas, you have to wear masks. And so we'll do the best we can in poker, in the World Series, we'll do the best it can. And, I think if you talk to the players, probably upwards of 95% want the World Series of Poker to come back in November. And not saying that that the same 95% say they're all going to play, but I think a lot of us want it to come back. And there's one other interesting thing, Doug, one other thing that even my friends may have, let's leave that off the table. There's one interesting thing. They were expecting, this is very interesting because no one talks about this. They were expecting one more massive wave of COVID and then for it to disappear. Now people forget that's what they were expecting. So now, according to some very smart people I've talked to, and we could be wrong, but that wave came months early. So what was it? 1.2 million people a day are getting Delta variant right now or something. Eventually one theory is eventually it's going to run its course. Now everybody watching this is going to say, Phil's wrong. He's wrong. Well, the scientists, the really smart scientists might say, well, there's a lot of truth in what Phil's saying. or maybe they'll say I'm wrong, but but I've talked to some really smart people that say this is the last wave, and eventually we're going to end up with herd immunity. And so people are like, I mean, I've heard people say that October 1st, we're going to be on the other side of this. Of course, COVID's never going away. I'm not saying that, but it feels like this is the big wave that we have to get through, before we have a chance to get back towards normalcy again.
I certainly hope that's the case. I could see this going on for a very long time, given the cyclical nature of how this seems to spread. And now, of course, having a new variant outbreak, and Lord knows what variants will outbreak next. So I don't know. I'm not the experts. I'm not going to predict what I think. It does feel like this is going to be a thing for some time, but maybe it'll be at a much smaller scale. Before we go here, I wanted to briefly talk about your hat. So it says Bitcoin Latinum. I did a little research about this. I'm confused how it's Bitcoin. Could you explain the project a little bit so that I can understand what I'm looking at?
First of all, I am a paid advisor, and this is not investment advice, right? Because we haven't, that's what the SEC, so it's fair for me to state that. The thing that I like, the thing that's fun about, Bitcoin Latinum, several things. One, security, right? So we give you a metal credit card and a phone and a password. Okay. And so you can only access your Bitcoin Latinum when you have all three. So if you leave your credit card at home, you can't get to your Bitcoin Latinum. So it seems a little safer. Now, we have signed deals, or we're working on signing deals with Marshall McLennan. So basically, if you have 30 million in Bitcoin Latinum and you're using our security system and it gets stolen, or replace it the next day. So that's one of the things we're talking about, is insurance on the coin. That doesn't mean that you don't have to pay us $100,000 a year for the insurance, but it does mean that you can protect a lot of money quickly once that deal with Marshall McLennan is done. Number two, it's supposed to be a hard fork. So I think that means that a lot of people will have Bitcoin Latinum, but don't quote me on that. That's not where I'm an expert. But I can comment on speed of use of the coin. So, and I can comment on how much we charge. So if you want to buy a Starbucks with regular Bitcoin, the fee is about $10, right? It can be $20. It's a lot. So you buy your $4, but with our coin, we're shooting for 10 cents as the fee. Now, another thing that's interesting about this, Doug, is these guys are I'm going to say in the process of, we may have already done it. I think we've already done it, but I can't, they're in the process of raising $1 billion in cash and cash equivalency, right? Whatever, Bitcoin, Ethereum, cash, right? And so they're putting all in a trust somewhere. Okay. The money's in a trust. Every time you use a fee with Bitcoin Latinum, 80% goes into the trust. So if this gets widespread adoption, say there's 1 million transactions in a day with people buying Starbucks and whatever and getting insurance, right? Then you can imagine this $1 billion in the trust, in the foundation's trust, just getting to $1 trillion, right? And so that's kind of exciting. So, we have this opportunity. And so, people say, well, why didn't you release the white paper a long time ago? It made it look like it wasn't real, right? And the CEO is like, I'm not going to release this white paper till the last possible moment because, everybody's going to copy us. Everybody's going to copy us.
So I've looked at this, and I guess I've just seen a lot of projects in the space that I feel like that have failed, but also that I feel like it's misleading marketing, because I just don't see how this is Bitcoin. I mean, I read something that's called an enhanced hard fork. I followed crypto for a long time. I don't exactly know what that even is. And it seems that you can buy, there's something about that you can be bought versus some kind of hard fork. I mean, if it's a fork, it should be everyone that has Bitcoin gets Bitcoin Latinum. And if it's not a fork, then it should be its own token that has its own sort of initial token event. I don't see how it can be a kind of mix of both. That doesn't feel very natural to me. And
that's fair.
I also don't see why the name Bitcoin, this doesn't seem like it's Bitcoin. This isn't Bitcoin, right? This is something else.
I mean, it does seem, listen, I'm not, listen, I should really be better educated on my own coin. So you can slap me and say, Phil, I'm criticizing. I want you to explain everything to me better than you're explaining it, which is fair. And I know that the coin is scheduled to come out Labor Day weekend at $20 a coin, which is interesting. I know that they've done a lot of pre-sale stuff I know they sold out at all these levels going up. I think they might have sold out at $16 or something now. Coin's supposed to come out at 20. And so, I mean, the speed of transaction, is it possible based on using exactly traditional models to have a speed that fast? That's a fair question. But I think that the interesting thing is that our CEO was a technology CEO for 20 years. So if you come to me and you say, Phil, this doesn't feel like a precise definition of Bitcoin, it feels more like a hybrid, then I'd be interested in having, our CEO explain that to you, because he'll have a little better understanding. I know all of the basics behind it, but apparently I don't know enough to answer your question. So I apologize for that.
Yeah, I'm not doubting the scaling solutions. So the most important thing with blockchains is you think about the
people are doubting the scaling solutions.
Well, and that might be true, but there's a thing called the trilemma problem, I believe, which is there's three aspects to blockchains that are important: security, scale, and decentralization. And typically, as you get more of one, you get less of others. So if you're super secure, like Bitcoin, it's really hard to scale, and that's why it's expensive and it takes a while. It's not good at scaling because it's so secure. If you're really decentralized, typically it's harder to make changes that are needed to the network. So it's harder to fix things as they go wrong. So typically that takes away from your ability to be to at least to scale, maybe to some degree security as well. And then typically, if you scale really fast, you have to make sacrifices and trade-offs. So those are sort of like the trade-offs there.
Yeah. I do actually understand that. Yes.
Okay. So it's nice. I guess I just feel that the name Bitcoin is just not what this is, because it's a pre-sale and people are buying tokens, and that's fine. People can do whatever they want. I have no problem with that. I just feel that I don't understand why the name Bitcoin is being thrown in here. It makes it seem like it might confuse noobs into thinking that it's Bitcoin when it is actually something different. I think the name is, my take. I would love to talk with
everything you're saying is completely fair. I wish that I had the CEO on here to answer your questions, because listening to him talk about it is really cool, and to me it's cool. But again, I'm also and I must say that I'm pretty excited to be involved with it too. It's been fun for me because I haven't known enough about this. I've been on the sidelines too long, and watching you make all the money, Doug.
Well, I try every day, Phil. Well, I'll tell you what. How about you reach out to CEO, see if he's interested in coming on the pod? I'd love to talk to him. And I also, you've been great here today joining us. I don't want to be grilling you over something where it's obviously more of his vision. So I could ask him the harder hitting questions about it, because I just want to protect people. There's a lot of stuff in the space that
absolutely
people really take advantage of. And I just want to protect people is my main.
Yeah. I was not hired to raise money, so for this. And so, but still some of my friends have asked and some of my friends have invested, so, it's been kind of fun for me. I went to my first Bitcoin conference in Miami.
Nice.
Yeah,
the recent one?
Yeah.
Nice. How'd you like it?
I loved it, but you won't like what I'm going to say next, because I'm going to drop it.
What happened?
Well, we wanted to meet we wanted to at least talk to the Winklevoss brothers, and got to them pretty quickly, which was fun. It turns out they're friends with a lot of my friends, but I put some pictures on my unreasonable Twitter with the Winklevoss brothers.
If you have a cool story like that, Phil,
phone number, and
that's fine. If you have a cool story like that, I'm just but that's naturally within the course. You know what I'm saying? That was natural. That was quite reasonable.
I know, but that's my life. Every story I tell is naturally within the.
Oh, it's getting less reasonable by the moment.
Okay. But I mean, had so much fun, and their party was pretty cool. I mean, you can just imagine what their party was like. But we couldn't spend that much time there. We had a bunch of other stuff we had to do. But was kind of fun. I really had a lot of fun at the conference and ran into a lot of people I knew and some really cool new friends down there, you know?
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I think they're gonna have
Welcome
them
to Miami. Will Smith.
dancing around. All right, a nice way to end this. Phil,
$100,000 cars. Everybody got them.
I don't, unfortunately. One
That was
day.
a bigger brag a long time ago. They're right. 100,000 cars. Everybody got them. Welcome to Miami.
I just watched the Cocaine Cowboys on Netflix. You seen that before? You heard of that? It's about the two guys that really ran the cocaine game in Miami in the 80s and 90s. It's a great series. If you haven't checked it out, it's a fun one.
Gonna check it out.
It's good. You'll like it. It's a fun one. I recommend
Are
it
we
to the
wrapping
audience
up
as well.
here?
We're wrapping up, man. I want to say thank you for joining us today, and appreciate all your thoughts, all your takes, and I'm definitely interested to see how these heads up battles continue to go, because it's interesting seeing the clash of styles. And I think that when you think back on, you think about fighting, right? MMA, boxing, styles, right? Styles make fights. And what's interesting when you play, regardless of people's take on your ability, or if it's genius or whatever it is, whatever their thoughts are.
You can use the other word, genius or stupid.
Whatever. It's fun. It's fun to see. It creates very watchable hands that people enjoy, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in the future matches.
It challenges people, right? Because if you're watching like two standard guys play, it's like, I expect that, I expect that, I expect that. When you're watching me play, it's a little bit like, what's he trying to do here? Not sure I agree with this. Not sure I agree with that. What's he trying to do here?
You definitely get to see some stuff you wouldn't see with anyone else. That's for sure. All right, Phil, thank you very much for joining today.
I think that was a compliment. I don't know.
Of course. Also, by the way, you said earlier, Doug, you've been mean to me in the past. You made a comment that was like that, and I try to just be fair. If I feel like something is mean, I try to be purposeful.
You were a little bit mean when Mike Madison and I played in LA. You know,
that hand was ridiculous. Okay,
that was a little mean. I didn't even call. I mean, you know.
But what Mike did,
I can't help it if the idiot was complaining. Yeah, I didn't even catch that. I mean, you know, come on. I mean.
Okay, but Phil, if you were in a hand and you were all in, and two other guys were in the hand, and one of them said what he had to the other guy, basically, that'd be fucked up, right?
Mike, people do that all the time. You know, it's whining or lamenting. I mean, but is he lamenting the fact that he would have made three deuces or a flush? I mean, you know. It felt like that was a little bit mean. I mean, some of the words you used, like you could have handled that one a little bit different.
Okay. That's all I will, of course, always accept responsibility for maximally packaging for the most punch. 100%. I'm not going to fight you in any capacity.
Packaging for the big punch hurts somebody though a little bit more than you intended.
Fair. That's fair. But Mike shouldn't have done that though. Right. He shouldn't have done that.
By the way, Mike did not have a piece of me, just to be very clear.
Well, I think people knew that already, but it's also good to make sure that's clear.
Just to be clear.
I'm not
folded. That's why I was mad. I folded anyway. So I thought I made a bad lay down. And then Doug said this. Fuck. I mean, I got punched here, punched there, lost my money, and criticized on top of it. So anyway, whatever. People
weren't upset with you there, though. They were upset with Mike.
It's true. Sure.
What are you supposed to do? Have him not say something? It's not your fault. It's nothing to do with you, right?
It's hard to get him not to talk, by the
way. It is. I ran into Mike in Austin. I just moved to Austin recently, and he was at one. I just wanted to check out the local rooms to kind of see what was up, and I ran into him, and he looked like he was doing really good, man. He's obviously walking again out of the scooter, and I think he's looked like he's lost a little bit of weight. He just been downtown. He was doing something, talkative, chatty as always. Maybe that doesn't mean anything. But
I think he has a really good heart, right? And then sometimes he gets off his meds, which his words. Sometimes he gets off his meds, goes a little bit crazy in whatever dimension it is, and then, you know. But I think us in the poker world, we all really like him a lot, and we all really appreciate him a lot. So
that's another guy I should have on as a guest. That would be a great one. So I'll hit Mike up actually after this, and we'll try and schedule something. But yeah, great hanging out, Phil. It's good. I miss the older days where we would go to all the same stops. And remember we did that tequila commercial together. Or sorry, mezcal. Was it tequila or mezcal?
Yeah.
Trusted friend, Kimosabi.
And you and I had so much fun. We had so much fun when we had dinner in Pittsburgh, I think it was, or one of those stops. It was so much fun, and I was like, ever since then. and we had a nice dinner in New York, you and I. And ever since then, I've been like, God, I really like Doug a lot, and we get along well. And I don't think I've ever said anything negative about you ever in public. Stop attacking me. And you really haven't.
Phil, you are.
I had to tease you just a little bit.
If it's fair, you can attack me. That's fine. I've never really come after you for something that was totally unwarranted and just a random attack on you as a person. I've never done that.
I mean, you are looking for extra views. I also think, it kind of, watching you and Daniel fight, and I like both of you guys. I was like, come on, guys. I mean, I know what you said. I mean, I wish. Yeah, I'm not. You know what? I shouldn't have even brought that up. But
well, we're good now. Me and Daniel are cool. We chat all the time.
Yeah, good. I mean, I felt like that's where you guys needed to get. So, you're kind of two of the bright lights of poker. So, two great players, and it's better, I think, when everybody in the poker world gets along to the extent they can get.
There's a mix. I think sometimes it's good for there to be some confrontations. I think
for sure
the audience enjoys that. Although there's always the skeptics that this is all staged. Those people are too funny to me. You think that the years of me and Negreanu, mainly me bashing him, but a bit of both, you think that was staged? We were this will be great. People will really enjoy this.
No, of course it wasn't.
Of course
staged.
Not. Yeah.
Not one person in the poker world thought that was staged.
Oh, that is not true. There are plenty of people online that thought that it was staged. And then when we had our first live session and we were nice to each other, people thought, oh man, I thought there was going to be shouting at each other and yelling, insults. What's this bullshit? They're nice. This is not what I signed up for. I wanted blood. There was a bunch of that.
I mean, I think, I better just stay away from that. I'm happy. I'll say this. I'll stick with positivity. I'm glad you guys are getting along well.
Can you, before we go, one last question, Phil, can you give me the origin of positivity? Where did that first come from?
Yeah. So I mean, I think my mom had this thing on the bathroom mirror when I grew up. It was, you are what you think, you become what you think becomes reality. And that you are what you think, you become what you think becomes reality. That taught me from a very early age that I can create my own reality, right? So I started thinking really big, right? I mean, if you believe you can create your own reality, you're going to be reaching, right? And then through time, in 1987, I think, I wrote down all of these kind of important life tips that I figured out early in life, right? Wrote them down, and half of this book is from that. So, you take Poker Brat, right? And I decided, I mean, I feel a little bit like Ayn Rand, right? You take Poker Brat, which is my autobiography, which is filled with a lot of positivity, and you take those 8 life tips and you ground them down to this. This book takes 70 minutes to read. We've timed it. If you listen to the audio version, 70 minutes. So these 8 life tips are what I learned, right? Like, the number one life tip I can share with the people watching right now that changes people's lives. Write down your yearly goals, your 2021 goals, write them on a sheet of paper, rewrite them, take a couple days, get them in order, and tape them on your bathroom mirror. Now that changes people's lives. People come up to me. People come to me all the time, all over the world, and they say, you changed my life. I hit number 1 and 2 goals on my calendar, on my goal sheet. And why does that help? Because in the morning, when you get up, when you have all of your power, when you're fresh and you're, brushing your teeth and your hair and whatever people do in the morning in the bathroom mirror, you read that list a bunch of times, right? Here's my goals. You read it. And eventually you stop reading it after 3 weeks, 2 weeks, but your unconscious and subconscious mind sees that. And so you leave the house every single day, and the forefront of your mind, whether it's unconscious, subconscious, wherever, is your number one goal. And so that's all. And because it's in your mind, you see shortcuts. If it's not in your mind, you don't know what your goals are. But if it's in your mind, you're going to see shortcuts. You're going to be like, wait a minute, an example I give of this is, Doug, is there's 2 people, living next to each other, right? And one guy says, hey, these are the perfect 8 reasons why I should start a sports bar. And then lays it all out to his wife and kids, and then says, Martha, please pass, the potatoes, right? Or, And please pass the peas is what we use. That specific statement came from a billionaire friend of mine. Martha, please pass the peas. The idea is dead. Next door, the same guy, another guy says, these are the 8 reasons why I want to stop the sports bar. But this guy makes one small change from the other guy. He says, I'm going to stop by my favorite sports bar on the way home tomorrow after work. And he does. And he opens that door to that sports bar, but it's a figurative door. It's a literal door. But figuratively speaking, behind that door exists 8 other doors. So the one guy is never giving himself a chance to achieve this dream. The other has walked into the sports bar. You could tell me, I could say, Doug, name the 7 doors that exist behind that. And you'd be like, well, this. He could raise capital. He could take over this guy's bar, right? And so, I teach people to frame their goals and to go for them. And that's what I've done my whole life, Doug. So, I've written, like I had this goal sheet, win more, become the greatest poker player of all time. Arguably I'm there, for now. I did it by I thought I had to win World Series of Poker tournaments to get there. I had a goal to write a New York Times bestseller. I did that. I was lucky. I wrote Play Poker Like the Pros. Some guy held it up on ESPN. Boom, it's on the New York Times bestseller list. I wanted to meet and marry an amazing woman. 32 years I've been with my wife. I wanted, just some simple stuff. I wanted a nice house. I bought a penthouse condominium a few months after writing that goal sheet. I mean, one of the best places in Madison, Wisconsin. I wanted a nice car, bought a couple of those. And so, that very simple goal sheet that you write when you're 22, 23, hit it. So for the people listening to this, basically just write down your goals, 21 goals, right? And keep it on your bathroom mirror, and then tweet me when you achieve the first goal, because so many people have.
That's awesome. Those are good closing words. I think that's awesome advice. And again, pleasure to have you on today, Phil. Thanks for taking the time.
See you, Doug.
All right. See ya. It's going to be it for us guys here at the podcast. Thank you for joining. We're going to have Brian Pellegrino on in a couple of weeks. Otherwise known as Primordial AA Online, for some poker and crypto talks. Should be good. I'll see you guys then. Have a good one.